Aloha, everyone. It's Wednesday, and that means it's news day. The DAS team has delved into the dark reaches of the internet to find their favorite tales of vaulted inspiration and separate woes from this last week. Brace yourselves as we plunge deep into the stories like generative AI can outperform humans in EQ or emotional intelligence tests. Anthropic wasn't satisfied with last week's dev announcement. They had to add voice. And what is a unified multi-model model? Apparently, it's a bagel. It is May 28th, 2025, episode 473, and this is the Daily AI Show. Today, I am joined by Beth and Andy. Thank you, everyone, for joining the live stream, and to all of you who are watching later. If you haven't already, please click the bell, like, and subscribe, and join the discussion at thedailyAIshow.com. Okay, let's go ahead and start with a quick one. Quick story we've got is finally, from the web space, WordPress has formed an AI team, right? So WordPress, nobody's been talking about WordPress in the AI space because, well, that's strictly websites. Now, they are the largest provider or vendor of websites or platform of websites. It's their main selling point has been able to get high level of functions and development around your web presence. So it's easy enough to throw on a WordPress template, add add different components or modules to it, and get more and more functionality like SEO and contacts and all of those kinds of things. But they have finally announced that they're putting together an AI team to develop AI capabilities or AI features for WordPress, which I think is a long time coming. But also, will they be too late? Is the changes in AI going to make traditional websites defunct? So that's kind of the big question, but it is nice to hear that they are trying to attempt something. All right. So, what does anyone have a vaulted inspirational story or a desperate tale of woe to tell us?
In it may be too late news. It's not going to be too late, but finally, Anthropic has released voice for Claude, so that now you can speak to your program, speak your prompts to Claude through the iOS app, and also for Anthropic. There's some confusion about whether it's available now or it's rolling out, but it's rolling out only in English and only to paid users. But super interesting that they made that move now, right? Almost like when they added search. Like most people who want to talk to Cloud have found a workaround at this point. But I am always a big fan of being able to talk to your AI and have AI talk to you and ask you questions. So yay for this.
Yeah, I have some additional voice-related news. But first, I wanted to mention that I saw something online in social media, TikTok probably, about the emergence of interaction for personal support and personal professional development via voice as being one of the more, it's like at the top of the charts now for use case utilization of AI. That is, really dependent on the voice interaction because, you're not going to make a large investment in typing unless you're really a fast typer like I am. I learned on a mechanical typewriter way back when, so I have really good finger skills on that one. But I prefer voice. So here's some additional developments that are related to this. First, Microsoft has released a thing called NL Web. And I want to read some of the things from their announcement. This NL Web leverages RSS and schema.org and other data that websites already publish to combine them with LLM-powered tools to create natural language voice interaction usable by both humans and AI agents. And this allows for the structured data that already exists in a website to be kind of with external knowledge developed by the LLM to create a rich user experience. Now, so here's their whole vision about this thing. But before I go on, I want to mention that it was developed by R.V. Guha, who joined Microsoft and is the creator of the widely used web standards RSS, RDF, and schema.org. Okay, so this is one of the grandfathers of the web and the methods that websites use to interact with this. Microsoft's creating NL Web, and their goal is to create a change in the way people search on websites by making it easy for anyone to create an intelligent natural language voice interface with the site. Shopify is an early partner, along with a list of many others. So you have two things happening here. One is a simplification of the way that you can bring voice interaction to a website using your already existing component underlying technologies. Microsoft adds this layer, and it's being tuned so that agents can interact with it as readily as you can interact with it via voice. So it's a standard, and it's going to be an open source standard. And it's a technology that's soon to be demonstrated. So that's a very interesting thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing, you've got Anthropic adding voice to their mobile apps. You've got NL Web coming for voice interaction on websites. Almost any commerce site you go to now, just talk to that website. Karl, by the way, our colleague who's not here today, has been a great proponent of this idea of a new method of interacting with websites. Oh, he's here. So Karl, yeah, NL Web from Microsoft is bringing to life your vision of how you should, instead of having to navigate by browsing through a website, you're just going to talk to the website. So that's NL Web, very important, and I thought very interesting kind of development. But then I was really intrigued by another thing that I stumbled upon on the web, which is from a French AI lab called Qtai. And they unveiled a thing called unmute.sh. It's an open source tool that lets you add voice capabilities to any LLM. And it's a cascaded system. I'm not sure what that means technically, but I'm going to have to look into that. And it does speech to text for you, and it does text to speech for the other side of the model. And it's using Google's Gemma 3, 12 billion. So it's a very small model. And so it can be put together with a local LLM and give you voice interaction capability with even a local instance of that LLM. But it will also simplify the implementation of voice interaction in any kind of application you want to deploy. And that's very interesting to me because, text is a limiting, typing in text is a limiting way of interacting with these things. And the demo that's on their website, unmute.sh, is very clever and very good. So I encourage you to try that. It basically creates the ability to say out loud whatever the model is producing in its text, and any model, doesn't matter which model you're talking about.
Wow, that's a lot of voice news. I love it. That last one is super interesting because I always like anything that integrates with your local system, right? Anything that you can run yourself. Have to look more into it in terms of, can I run everything local without having to make calls out? But regardless of that, I wanted to call back to what you were saying about that study. That came across my feed as well, about what the top usages are. If you do have a link to what that report is, I would love it. If not, please, chatters or viewers, let us know, because I'd love to follow up and check, go in a little deeper on that. Now, let's see, we talked about Anthropic, you talked about the study. The NL Web. Yeah, I saw that coming out of Microsoft. It's super interesting. To me, the first impressions I got was that it's a sort of fill in the gap kind of technology. It's not glamorous as in, oh, there's nothing, it's doing something that we haven't seen components of, but the ability to fill in the gap of what incumbent or legacy websites, right, that the vast majority of us are contacting for information, now has this ability to have a additional component. And when you mentioned that agents could take advantage of it as well, means that then that transitional period between what we see now, what's that interim phase, and then what we're going to see in the future, I think there's an interesting play there. So yeah, thank you, Andy.
Yeah,
That's
the voice
yeah.
part of NL Web, it won't be particularly interesting to agents. They're not going to, trouble themselves with that.
Yeah.
But it is underlying. It's an open source platform. NL Web is an open source capability that is all natural language. So the agents can speak not loud, but they'll speak to the website, and you can speak aloud with any Shopify website coming soon.
Right. Any extra point of interface for the agents to be able to gather information from your existing site or your legacy format, I think it's going to be super helpful, especially when you need to gather more data quicker, faster. All right, Karl, do you have a story that you're itching to talk about?
Yes. It is a dumb story, but I want to share it because it's fantastic. I just want to put okay. I'm trying to share this because it says humanoid on it. I forget it. I'm just going to share my entire screen. Let me know when inception happens. There we go. Okay. What I want to do is humanoid AI powered robots duke it out in China fight competition. So essentially, I want to play this.
No audio. Oh man.
Here's what the audio.
Oh, this is with the audio?
It has like epic audio, but it doesn't matter.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, no. So who won?
Who cares?
What do you mean? Who cares? We've got to start a whole sports subgenre of robot fights.
Okay.
Is there enough like robot fighting shows now so that we could have a channel or robot fighting night? Because we've always had, like, since the 90s, we've had battle bots and robot wars.
Do you want audio? I will give you audio. I will give you audio. But I need to share it in
yeah, you need to share it in a tab.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Okay.
Inception.
You got the tab?
Yep.
Okay.
Nope.
No audio.
You didn't get the audio?
No,
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
Well, I mean, look, this was bound to happen, right? This once you could get robots at a significantly reduced price or a more sustainable price, regardless of how useful these particular robots would be outside of the ring. I don't know what their capabilities were built for, but they're obviously like less costly so that they could put on it. Okay, here we go.
What happened? It disappeared. All right, I'm back in.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, sorry, you were saying.
Oh, well, I was just say I would just say that that this was inevitably going to happen because once the robots were a little more sustainable in, you know, their costs and things like that, they're going to be used for everything. And we have a long history of having robot based competitions like Robot Wars, Battle Bots, those kinds of things. Now they've just taken a humanoid shape. Though I'm wondering how quick it will be before they become, before those two align. Like this looked like a boxing match, right? Like a regular human boxing match. But when is it going to be when these humanoid robots are put into a battle bot arena and we're going to see crazier and crazier things going beyond WWE, them equipped with hammers and buzzsaws and stuff like that.
We're going to go back to Roman times, right? Like, yeah, fight to the death, in which case I'm pretty sure there isn't going to be a human referee standing in the middle of that trying to, like, that was my thought of this. I'm pretty sure those robots could take you out in like half a second, referee. What are you doing in the middle of all that?
Not those ones. Those ones you're like those ones, I think, like they're super still kind of fragile. You can kind of see them, right? So like, sure, they'll throw a punch, but I'm sure if you like knock it a little bit, it would like just kind of topple over.
I don't know. I don't know, because all it takes is just some sort of pinch to happen or an elbow just flung out there. I think it's deceptive. These may be smaller than human type of humanoid robots, but you know, one
I'd like to fight them.
arm out there, right?
It'd be fun to fight them.
Okay. Your ChatGPT later today is going to tell you that is the wrong thing. If you would like your
I will literally do it. Like there'll be a
back.
lot of people like me who will want to fight these robots. It just, you're gonna have YouTube channels full of this human versus like 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1, 5-on-1, 10-on-1.
June would like you to pay attention to how tall they are right now, and you might be very vulnerable to some specific things that could take you out.
Well, but you do bring up a good point in terms of sports technology or sports medicine technology, right? What if you had a sparring robot, right? Because right now they're when you want to spar or whenever you're training, regardless of the, you know, of the martial sport, is you have to have someone to spar with, right? But if you had a robot that had whatever plugged into it, you know, it's trained on certain moves and everything like that, then you could practice with this robot as much as possible, right? As much as possible for you. And you wouldn't have to worry about having to have someone else brought in who could potentially, you know, whether they tire out or get damaged or people get hurt, you know, those kinds of things. So there might be an application for this in that process of you know, sports training.
You could customize your robot based on your next opponent, right? So it does the features, it does the moves that the opponent does. It has the vulnerability that the opponent does, and then you could really practice.
So analyze all of their fight footage, analyze everything you know about them, create a model or fine tune a model to replicate their moves and their most likely decisions to better train yourself to fight that particular opponent. That is an interesting application and can totally be the basis of my next sci-fi script.
All right.
Right.
You heard it here first.
That's every single sport, right? Because they're using right now for the NFL VR headsets to simulate for quarterbacks, like simulated rush plus throw. Then you start adding more and more concepts to that. But it's also NASCAR and Indy trainers, like they've always had that, right? But they need to simulate the G-force when you're going that fast, which, you know, the video game can give you that aspect, like the actual driving, but to get the G-force and how fast things are moving, it's got to be something else. But every single sport has that capability now with robotics, whether it's one-on-one training, whether it's like I remember in college, that'd been awesome. Cause when we're playing football, it's like, it'd have been crazy. I know some of the top schools they don't have the robots, but they have like the things that you would like, for us, it was the jugs machine, but imagine now you have like an actual robot QB throwing as machine. And then, for whatever drills simulated the scout team defense, scout team offense, you'd have these things going around. So there's so many applications outside of that. I'm surprised the NFL, the MLB, like those industries that have billions of dollars haven't put more. We haven't seen that particular concept yet. So which means like I would think Optimus, figures robots, they would be one of the first clients. It just, to me, that would make the most sense because they have the most money and then they can test it in a live situation.
Yeah, I mean, that might be a great initial partnership too for further testing.
Yeah,
for the robots themselves, or specialized versions for whatever particular industry or space they're going to be in. I'm surprised there isn't already being mentioned building out AI analysis and prediction models specifically for like the NFL. It's like, we have all of this data, we can plug it in. You already review all game footage. You already, come up with different playbooks to try in these kinds of things. It does make sense that you're going to use it to inform your decisions. If the AI says this is going to happen 80% of the time, well, let's take a look at this. What are the things that seem to be happening? Yeah.
But don't you think that means that it's not a team that's doing it, right? Like they're totally doing this.
No, the analytics team already has their analytics department, right? Already has this data they're providing, right?
The reason we're not hearing about it is because it's not an outsider who needs to say it out loud so that people get behind
we have heard about it. We have heard coaches complain about it. They're like, for example, 4th down, do you go for it or you don't? You hear some coaches complain that they're like, oh, my analytics team tells me this, but I should do this. It's like, we should go with this. While some coaches like, I totally trust my analytics teams. Like, there's always, you hear bits and pieces of that when some coaches say certain things. It's like, do you trust analytics? You don't. And I think, have you seen the movie Moneyball? Yeah. So that, I don't know, like this machine learning wise, you could probably do those kind of statistics. Like baseball of all the sports is the one that's the most statistically like has all the stats on, just every single play, pitch, whatever. Right. So I can imagine one team just like taking it all. But I think it's like all sports too, right? They can tendencies and, percentages and all that stuff. So yeah, but sports is just one piece of it too, right? So you got robots. I think the thing that we think of is the robots in the factories, the robots in you could have sports robots, but how about just robots for day-to-day tasks? Like the real dangerous tasks, right? So it's the one I was thinking about is like, imagine if there's something in a sewer and it's like some clog or whatever that is. Yeah, I'd totally send that robot down there, right? Like, or gathering scientific information from like volcanoes. Totally send a robot there. Do not like, that's pretty dangerous for people. So like, what are dangerous activities that you can do now? Oh, here's my favorite one, and sorry for going on this topic. How about you clean up Mount Everest? Just send a whole bunch of robots to clean Mount Everest. To me, it's like if you see the garbage all around Everest, people going up and down, I just send a whole bunch of like new like robot Sherpas to go out and just clean all that garbage. That
And
to
you're-
me makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And you're not limited to human form factor.
No,
right?
it's just
So
All right.
clean
Yeah.
Mount Everest with like octopus bot because you need
something
more ability to pick
like
stuff up.
yeah, let's those nasty places where human like just people have been throwing the garbage, just get robots to just that. To me, like that's the best deployment because no one's done it, and you can't say, oh, we're taking jobs. There is no jobs. There's no one who wants to do it, and no company's going to invest in it. Well, guess what? Now you can.
Yeah, let's see that, because I would love to see a robot that cleans up that giant massive plastic in the middle of the Pacific. That'd be interesting too.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's get back to some news. Give what the people want. So we'll start off with a little OpenAI news, which might sound a little less important than, or a little more important than you might think it is. And that is OpenAI will allow you to, start soon anyways, allow you to sign in with ChatGPT. So the vast majority of sites have built-in login processes for Google, some for Apple, some for Microsoft, along with their own standard like email, username, password types of logins. And what this does is it allows users to easily connect their services through some standardized process or protocols and get into their sites. Now, OpenAI is looking into offering that on a massive scale. If you've already tried to use their new Codex logins for development on the OpenAI site, you do have a sign in with ChatGPT option there. Now, why this might be more important than what people might initially think. Well, number one, it directly takes on Google, right? Sign in with Google is ubiquitous, but now you can get signed in with the ChatGPT. 600 million users on ChatGPT. Now they can easily use those credentials to get onto all of their other systems. But what this also does is it fast tracks and cuts through a lot of the interconnecting between services. So if you imagine that your agent that lives on your ChatGPT OpenAI ecosystem now has sign in, that means your credentials can be easily put to all of these other systems to allow your ChatGPT agent to then access them. So it cuts through a lot of the lift that users would need. And if it starts integrating to all of the most popular services, SaaSes, productivity apps and things like that, then this is a shortcut to getting more people to stay in the ChatGPT ecosystem, because your agent can just access all of your other accounts until, they supply their own version, things like that. So just a little bit of highlight. And we'll
just to add a point of information about that, on similarweb.com, which is a ranking of all the websites in the world that are visited by humans, ChatGPT, and I think that by that they mean the website chat.openai.com. That's the number 5 most visited website behind Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. X is behind now. Twitter is behind chat.openai.com. So it's not like they're a pretender. They do have an enormous population out there who are adherents to the OpenAI system. And if you want to unify your logins, having that accessible is a good one. Now, it makes sense to me to log in with my Google email account. It doesn't make sense to me to log in with my TikTok account to a website. So there's a little bit of a difference there. I think I have more confidence in the Google authentication system than I do the Chat GPT authentication system as a stand-in for, you know, a regular login like Google. But anyway, there are these challenges that are being presented to Google overall.
For sure. Yeah, I think it'll just be interesting what that tipping point will be, right? It's like, oh, well, I spend now the majority of my time in ChatGPT for all the things that I want to do. Okay, now it'll make sense to do this more. So, yeah, I think this will grow with more and more importance as they attempt to roll it out or build upon it. For right now, just for clarification, for right now, this isn't a thing that they're rolling out for everybody. This is just something that they're looking at doing and implementing it within their own ecosystem. So to connect to that developer feature and things like that. But we have heard in the past, or we've seen in the past, when OpenAI says, oh, we're thinking about doing this, it usually happens in some form. So excited to see what comes out of that. All right. I have a bunch of other stories, unless there's another one somebody really wants to get to.
I think there's one that there's two of them, and I think like I saw it this morning from Paul Reitzer, and I actually saw a clip, I think a week back, from Reddit on so this morning they were talking, like Dario Amodei was talking about how like AI could wipe out half of all entry-level jobs in the next 1 to 5 years, from increasing unemployment from 10 to 20% in his interview, right? So he was saying how, like, you know, we need to stop sugarcoating the job loss. And then in on Reddit, one of the researchers were like, even if AI progress stalls today, we don't reach AI, the current system's already capable of automating all white-collar jobs within the next 5 years. So they're talking about very similar thing. What was sad, and this is the first time I've ever seen this before, and I can't tell who company, obviously, but like we worked with somebody and our work directly affected people. Like we saw it, the CEO is like, yeah, so I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm gonna let X people go. And so it's that being said, Reddit, Anthropic's researcher said, we're experienced in front lines. That connection is, like, to me, that connection is now like 100% real. And I think that's like a really big thing.
It's disturbing. And at the same time, there is a slow roll toward that direction. We'll find these early indications of it happening. But Gallup just did a poll that resulted in 93% of Fortune 500 executives claiming that they're integrating AI, but only 1/3 of the employees even knew about it. So the vast majority of C-level executives and mid-level executives will declare that they're integrating AI, but the employees haven't even heard about it yet. So that's a little unnerving if, in fact, it's dissembling on the part of the executives and not wanting to scare off their employees prematurely. But it's also possible that there's just a lot of vaporware out there in terms of AI integration at the Fortune 500.
One of the things we work with CEOs with is they can't buy, like, how there was one company, they're talking to us how, this AI legal company, it wasn't Harvey, asked us, they were trying to pitch their $50,000 a month product to this company, and they're like, hey, could you help us with this? And we're like, okay, what is it? They're describing it, like they're describing a custom GPT. And I was like, so were you considering it? Highly. And we're like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna give you some. I'm gonna give you advice right now. Just pay $20 a month. You can do all that. Really? It's like, yeah. I could literally show you today in about 5 minutes what you can do. What they just described, and they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "I'm sure. I am sure." So you have.
You
a
can't
lot
even suggest that you charge them only
I was like,
$25,000
I
for it.
can't even charge you anything of just
Yeah.
the concept of what. So I was like, can you share with me their? I was like, maybe they didn't describe it. I was like, it's impossible. Then I was reading it, bunch of fluff, and then I was like, wow, like you got to be kidding me. So I was like, here, let's take the five. Like we got to take the 5 minutes if you have some time and just because it. You're like, you what? But if that means there's a lot of companies out there gold rush trying to just milk money from so many people who just don't know, and because of how it's moving so fast, like they'll just pay it, right? And it looks good, but I'm like, you can do the exact same thing
Right.
in this software.
Because
And
it's
By the way, I think there's also a tipping point that's coming, and it's going to happen as a result of the increasing agentic capabilities of AIs. So it's been difficult up to this point to implement something, even as simple as a full RAG system inside your company. It's been expensive. It's a complex process, but soon, and I think we've foretold this, but with an expectation that it would take many years, you'll be able to have an agentic AI come into your company and sort of exhaustively understand it in very short order, literally within a day, and then start to take over processes by delegating them to sub-agents that it designs and builds in the process of changing over your entire business process architecture in order to optimize it and so on. And that the implication of that is that many of the people who are currently marshaling those business processes are going to go.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what it feels like to me sometimes in having these conversations is that we're standing on a beach talking to people about the waves that are coming in, right? People have seen waves. It's all good. We are saying, you don't know that this has happened, but there's been an explosion. We can tell somewhere out in the sea. And so the waves are going to get bigger and they're going to come in a little faster. And some people believe you that the explosion has happened. Some people don't, right? That's sort of a reasonable process. What we're having trouble getting across is that the nature of water is also changing. So the speed with which the wave comes is like the actual nature of how that works is less viscous. It just is. And so that's going to speed on its own. And we don't have a framework for changing the nature of water, right? That's where you're like, nah, yeah, you're drunk, Beth. Don't.
So on that analogy, we were at a CEO forum and somebody said a really good one. They're like, imagine if you had a car, but then the next day when you entered the car, the steering wheel's gone. And you're like, what happened to the steering wheel? And then the next day it's like the pedals are gone, but then the steering wheel is back, but instead of the pedals, you press a button. Then the next day something else happens. But then also you don't know that your car can now fly, but there's a button there, but it just happened to turn on the next day. So it's like all these things are happening to your vehicle, but you're like, you just keep driving it as if you drove it because that's how you've been conditioned all your life. But there's always new buttons, but no one tells you about these buttons. No one tells you about these features until one day your car has wings and you're like, well, when did this happen? And now you're just elevating before driving. So yeah, it was just funny because we were just describing like all the things that are moving.
And to your previous story, Karl, there are people outside your car window saying, I'll show you, I can make your car fly for 50,000. And you're like, press that button.
Yeah,
press that button.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay,
Crazy.
Jyunmi, take us to news.
So, I mean, it's a fantastic discussion and definitely highlights things. There's multiple things that were highlighted in there that are important. And even from the chat, Gwyn asks, like, are we under an obligation now to point out these kinds of behaviors? I'm sure we have to protect ourselves from, slander necessarily, but it is good to know that these organizations exist. And Karl, maybe you can create a secret hidden list that we can take a look at to be aware of in the future. But to move on to other news, in the conflict side of things regarding AI implementation, and this kind of goes to a point Andy was making earlier, is Politico, the newsroom. They're a news organization, right? Apparently, the political newsroom staff is now in contention with Politico's management, because management has rolled out AI features and AI tools within their processes that seem to go against the agreement they have with the staff, whatever their union agreement and things like that. They're supposed to not release any additional or any AI tools without 60 days warning, and explaining what the process is and how they're going to be using it. And apparently one day management just implemented a bunch of tools coming in from their contractors, the startup called Capital. I don't know too much about them, but this I think might be indicative of poor rollouts, right? If you already have an agreement that you're going to give your staff 60 days warning before you put in anything AI, and then you just fly in the face of that, that's definitely going to cause friction. This goes to, like Karl, you were saying with that one customer, hey, we're going to do these AI, we're going to put in this AI solution, and then I'm just going to cut staff. So, it's like you said, it's very real. And now we're seeing it being reported upon about here are direct applications of what kind of conflicts we're going to be seeing. I think there is probably a much better way of rolling out these features that is more inclusive for the staff in the process. But like people were saying in the chat, and then to Andy's point, the thinking seems to be, oh, let's hide this from our teams until it's ready to happen, to mitigate any possible negative response. But if there's going to be a negative response, then there's probably a better way to handle it. But again, to hammer home, yes, we are now seeing these conflict points show up more and more. Unless anyone has anything else, I'm going to move on to the story that I am most excited to talk about, besides the AI and science. Don't worry, we'll get to it. Is Bagel. So I'm going to go ahead and share a tab here. Let's see if I can. And I wanted to show this video that seems to highlight this it's from ByteDance. Okay, maybe I can't show it that way. All right, window, Chrome tab. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay, so here we go. I am just going to do it this way. Sorry for the downtime, everybody. Okay, now I can share it with audio. Okay. All right, I'm gonna bring that up so everyone can take a quick look at Bagel. Okay.
Can I use that, or is that
What
just
did we
a stick?
just see? What if you're listening on Spotify? That was very nice music.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So basically, that was the slick video from the bagel model, right? Recently released by ByteDance. I think this was out on the 20th. Now, this is what they are calling a unified multimodal model, right? So we have seen multimodal in different forms through different models, right? Text, we've seen image, and we've seen some video generation. All right. So now this model isn't meant to be, the next Gen 4 from Runway. This is not the model that's supposed to be the next Sora or anything like that. But what this does is, in a single model, it's trained to understand text, create text to images, do image editing, manipulation of images. There's the 3D capability and processing, and video context understanding. So it can analyze video frames and predict what the next possible frame will be, and along those lines. So the big thing about this model is that it's number one, it's open source. You can get it on Hugging Face or GitHub right now. It is I believe it's a 7 billion parameter size area. It performs similarly to Gemini 2.0 and ChatGPT, or OpenAI's GPT 4.0. So it's not a top of the line flagship type model, but it is that unified multimodal. And that's what I think the important takeaway here is you can do more of these types of features within the single model, right? And the fact that it's open source means that there's an option for this kind of usage through your own implementations. And so, because it's also on the smaller side and can perform just as well as some of these, middle ground type of or everyday type of models, it's a good replacement for those types of models. So if you have a project that needs image generation, image manipulation, particularly the 3D, it fills that in. Now, it also has thinking, right, through chain of thought reasoning. So it has some reasoning capability in there. So it is one of those hybrid model, if you're going to categorize those kinds of things. The thing I want to see is how well it does perform on local hardware, those kinds of things. And I think there's lots of applications for this. And I'm particularly interested in its video context understanding, and give how well can it analyze a frame, break it down for me? Am I able to then reference a particular video or a video from like YouTube or something like that and pull out elements that I need from it? And how much is that context, right? I don't know yet context window or anything like that, but can I draw different layers of contextual information and provide an analysis overall from it taking a look at that? So biggest thing is it's relatively small. It's an integrated or a unified multimodal capabilities within a single model, and it's open source. And so And we've seen lots of models being coming out of China and things like that. So this is one of the later ones from ByteDance. So something to look at. There's some interesting features here, and we'll see what kind of projects come out of it. Maybe we'll get something juicy, when like Flux hit the ground, that was super huge too. So we'll see.
All right. Are you ready for, let me see if I can pull it up. Here we go. Jyunmi, where is it? Here we go. Ready? Are you going to give us AI in?
Oh, yes. All right, here we go. Now we're going to move on to AI in science.
AI in science, science, science.
That was awesome. Thank you, Gareth. That was that's a fantastic clip. Thank you, Beth, for lining that up. All right, so let's go to my AI in science story. All right, now there's always fun stories from AI in science, from talking about robots or light-driven cockroach cyborgs that navigate without wires, those kinds of things. But the important story today is, or at least from the last week, is AI and emotional intelligence, right? So, all right. So, like I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, here's a story that's coming out of the University of Geneva. Now, this study, they've been doing it for a little while, and they finally released the results in the published in the journal Communications Psychology. But essentially, the psychology department of the University of Geneva and the University of Bern ran through a bunch of the traditional psychological tests that test emotional intelligence. Now, what was interesting about this is they tested both LLMs, a bunch of different LLMs, and humans on these same tests, right? But the LLMs they chose were not some of the latest LLMs. And I don't know how long this study took. So maybe these were the latest at the time that they started the study. But we're talking about ChatGPT 4, Gemini 1.5 Flash, Copilot 365, Claude 3.5 Haiku, and DeepSeek V3. So not necessarily old models, but not the top of the line. Now, this is AI, so top of the line might change in 2 weeks. But so these are the kinds of models that they tested, and some of the differences are immensely different in their scores. Like what they've listed here in this article is that LLMs in some tests tested 82% for the correct answers versus 56% of humans, right? And it's this story that made me remember that TikTok that came to my feed that Andy mentioned earlier in the show about how LLMs are being used for these personal or interpersonal or professional type applications, right? And so that's why I wanted to track that down as well, because that survey seems to support that LLMs are performing better when it comes to emotional intelligence. So I'm hoping that we'll see further study and further development in this. And, we've talked about, mental health and healthcare from embodied AI, from, LLMs and other types of AI. And so what seems to be the trend is there is significant movement in this direction. Maybe part of your personal AI will have a EQ or emotional intelligence module to help build up various aspects of your life, or addressed early signs of mental fatigue or other other symptoms that might show up, and help you correct or identify, hey, maybe this is something you should pay attention to. So an interesting look at how our own how AI and how maybe our own personal AI can help us to have a more healthy life holistically. So that's your AI and science story for today. Does anybody else have any AI and science or anything else that they want to cover?
I have a couple of quick things that aren't AI and science, but I wanted to say that there's a report out that Waymo rides in California jumped in the past 3 months 60 times in the number of rides taken. So from 12,000 a month is what was happening before. This is in California, 12,000 a month to 725,000 a month. And by the way, there are no drivers in those cars. So if you're thinking of getting involved as an Uber or Lyft driver when you lose your job, sorry, that's not going to be available. So that's a little tidbit for you.
All right.
So,
Okay.
my quick science-ish, Grid Care is a startup that has identified over 100 gigawatts of untapped data center capacity within existing electric grid through an AI-powered platform that analyzes tons of data points to utilize to locate underutilized infrastructure. And this is kind of interesting because, of course, we're always talking about what's happening with energy and whether we are going to be able to bring things online in time, or new technologies will come in so that it's more efficient, so that the usage AI is more efficient in its energy usage. This is finding the loose change in the couch cushions, right? This is going through, this is a process that goes through and analyzes where you could get more out of your existing system. And
Gotcha.
that is Grid Care.
Okay, so I will wrap up with a couple of quick shots, finishing up the AI and science side of things. If you've never heard of the Quipus, those are the Incan knot information devices, where they use knots and varied type of rope work to store information, whether that be, just essentially a written knowledge. Well, apparently, with some new development in AI that they've been trying to build recently, scientists have been able to, number one, record over 70 or 37,000 different chords. But they have realized, because of their AI algorithm, that they've been able to analyze it on and get a few more insights. Like, for example, the main connecting chord, they didn't think actually had any input or influence into what the subject was about. But that turns out to be wrong. Through the pattern recognition, they were able to find that these chords had different color variations, right? And that they tended to be found in groups which signified genre. So these are books, these are Incan books, essentially, and they talked about what the genre or subject was, whether that be medical or whether that be historical or any kind of categorization. So because they were able to glean from their analysis, that now they can identify genre within these Incan knots. So super cool on the historical science side of front. And, we always like to see how AI is helpful. The other side of things is another short story, is that there's a new group that has raised $13 million to crack the holy grail of models. And the group is now called Spatial, or Space AI Shill. And this is a European venture that has some really big players. I believe it has some ex big players in the AI space for Europe. But essentially, what they're trying to do is create more 3D world type models, because what we don't have really is a lot of forward movement into development of progressive larger worlds, spatial type of models that can generate these 3D worlds and things like that. There's a few players in the space, but no one has cracked it. So apparently these this new spatial group, it's started by the former co-founder of Synthesia, which is an AI avatar startup, and has brought in a few other players, like from Google, Google's 3D teleconference system that they just talked about, the Beam, Google's Beam. One of their technical team is built off from that team as well. And so what we're going to see is there's more and more movement in this space, not the kind of money we saw for OpenAI and foundational models, but you may have heard of us talk about a company or group called Odyssey, and they're working in that 3D world type of environment to create models that generate those whole worlds. Okay, I think that's about it. I just saw the feed that said Opera that is offering a new AI browser that's supposed to make websites for you. So that just came out. I don't know too much about it, but if anybody knows more about it or wants to dig deeper, let's continue the conversation on our Slack community. And you can get that there via if you're already joined, or if you want to join the Daily AI Show community.com. All right. So we're going to wrap it up there for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So thank you for chat. It's always great to see you folks in there. Thank you for everybody who's watching. And again, join our community to continue the conversation. Otherwise, please click that bell, like, subscribe. It really does help us out. And if you haven't already, you can always keep up with all of the information and get a little deeper insight by checking out our newsletter. And you can get that at thedailyAIshow.com. And that comes out every Sunday. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. Join us tomorrow. We've got a few things coming up. I think tomorrow is our Google show, right? So Google I/O was just jam-packed with everything. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. And then on Friday is our bi-weekly recap, where is basically just an excuse for us to talk about all the stuff that we didn't have time to talk about for the last 2 weeks. All right. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'll stop babbling. Aloha.